Welcome back to the Mid-Year YouTube channel. In today's episode, I wanted to show you another cool project I found for sale that hopefully one of you might want, so be sure to stick around. I'm working on this bird cage on the split window behind me, and I was looking through Marketplace and I found this car, and I thought it was a good time to talk about that car because we have a nice coupe bird cage sitting in front of us. Now, viewer discretion is advised. I have a lot of people asking me for coupe bird cages, for split windows, and for coupe projects. Can you build me one? Sell me parts for a coupe. Everybody's coupe crazy. This one's rough, so this isn't for the faint of heart. Your two options are you build it for really cheap and you find whatever parts you can and you put in a lot of legwork, or you save up and spend a lot of money and buy a nice car. Those are pretty much your two options. So with that in mind, keep an open mind on this project. First, we're gonna talk about the overall condition of the car, the listing. Then we're gonna jump into talking with this car about the condition, what we think it needs, what it would take to get it to a decent project car state, and is it worth it financially? So this project is really for somebody that wants to build a split window or a split window type tribute. So, all right, hang on, buckle up, here we go, we're diving into it. So we have a 64 Corvette coupe, and right away this picture is a little scary. The price, 15 grand, just put that on the back burner. Take that out of your, get out of the comment for a second and just hold on. So it's got a small block, 4-speed, I assume that means excellent frame or accept frame, I don't know. Has a title, no text, called number, hidden information. So I guess you can send the guy a message and see what happens. So, well, we can see that there's some burnt fiberglass. That's always a good sign to see right off the bat. And an engine that had a little bit of fire damage. That's fine, but it's complete, you know, ish. It's got a hood. It has a chambered back exhaust. The frame and everything looks like it's all complete mechanically. Interior, it's not so good. The dash is burnt up, radio's cooked, heater's probably gone, dash pads, steering wheel's gone, the gauge cluster melted out, seat covers. We can see from here that the tops of the doors are fuzzy, so that means it needs skins. For sure it needs skins at a minimum, but it's got vent windows, seat frames, it's got bumpers in the back, the gas tank and straps. The wiring actually is, well, it's all messed up. The bumpers look like they're in decent shape-ish. It's got all the bumper brackets. Still has a couple taillights. The valance is all twisted up. So it's got some stuff here, but we can see it's got a bird cage. That's what everybody's crazy about. Bumper looks pretty decent. Rocker trim, obviously wheels, tires, front bumpers, grille, headlight motors. There's still a lot of stuff here. So I know you're looking at this thinking I'm crazy because why would you pay 15 grand for that? Which I would not pay 15 grand for that. I would try to get it for like half of that. But let's talk about the condition of that. That bird cage is potentially in similar condition to this bird cage. Everybody's always asking me for coupe bird cages. Well, here's your opportunity right there. But you got to pay up for it. But it also comes with a lot of extra goodies that I wanted to talk about financially because it sounds like a lot of money, but I would value a coupe bird cage at least 5 to 7 grand potentially. Convertible bird cages are about half of that. But I mean, you could pay as much as 10 grand for a bird cage, a coupe bird cage that's nice. That car could have some damage. Whenever it got hot, it could have bent some of this metal. But if we look at the pictures, it actually looks like the fiberglass was just ripped off of it, probably to transport it is my guess. But there's still some bonding, well, there's no bonding strip there, but there's still bonding strips on the top, which that tells me it didn't get so hot that all the fiberglass burned off of it. The bird cage might need acid dipped, or at least, you know, cleaned very well because it's got rust all over it now. All the paint and coating that was on it's gone. But from what I can see, it actually looks like it's pretty well intact. And it does have a front end on the car, obviously. So that tells us, and it's got some trim, so that tells us it didn't get too hot around the windshield area. So there's still a lot of good stuff here. My vision for this car is to make it into a split window tribute. It's already a coupe, it's a 64, so you have some similar parts to start off with. You've got some of the hard parts like headlights, motors, bumpers, and brackets. All that stuff adds up. We're gonna go through the numbers here in a minute. But if you look at what other real split windows have sold for in bare bones shell project forms. You can have a bare shell on a junk chassis with decent fiberglass and probably a decent bird cage for like 60, 65 grand, and they've sold. And people are gonna say, well, that's crazy. Why would anybody buy that? Because if you have a client that's very wealthy, that'll spend maybe $500,000, $750,000 at your shop to build them a split window, and all you need to do is find a split window, you're gonna pay a lot of money for a car. And that's what's happening to the market. And because of that, bird cages are going up, doors are going up, all the parts to build that stuff are going up. And if you're like, nobody would ever do that, no one will buy a car that is completely gutted out, well, I can tell you personally that they will, because I have sold at least half a dozen cars in that kind of a condition, and they've gone to be really, really nice cars. The Misfit itself was bought a bare shell without a front end. It had a fiberglass dash. I think I included a gauge cluster, which he didn't end up using. And that was about it. The quarter panels were ripped off. I think they put maybe 1 or 2 new door skins on it. The car got a lot of work and ended up selling for almost $500,000. So people are doing this. And if you're a serious contender, this is a serious car for you. So I jotted down a quick list here of some parts that you're going to need. So if you're starting off with a bird cage like this, the first thing you're gonna need is the bonding strips that go along the roof. And you can buy all of those reproductions. Some of them might be usable on that car, but I have those spec'd out at about $600 for all of those. And then you're gonna have to put on, obviously, a whole back end of fiberglass, similar to this. Now there's a couple different routes you could go. You could buy this top from Dynamic, which is a little costly, but it's a really nice piece. You could buy this top from ACI, again, still a nice piece, or, which this is my favorite option for a more budget type build, is ACI sells a rear clip that's got the top, the taillight panel, and both quarter panels on it. And that piece is almost $1,900. And that takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. Now, this car, you're obviously going to need a rear floor because you can see the gas tank. You shouldn't be able to see that. But if you're a guy that rebuilds Corvettes like me, you have a stash of them somewhere. If not, I mean, I would sell one of mine if someone was really considering it, but they're out there. They're a few $100. I think I put like $300 to $500 on a rear tub. And this is for the guy building a resto mod, keep in mind. So it doesn't have to be perfect. You're gonna cut a lot of it out to put in your dynamic rear floor. So now that we have the bonding strips in the whole back end of a car, right away, you have a car that looks fairly complete. Now, the doors, I have reskinned these before. You'd have to look at those doors to see if the metal's twisted. But again, it looks like the fire, it could have been in a garage that caught on fire and the heat may have gotten to the car. I don't know what happened to it, but judging by the fact that the front end was mostly intact, the back end was gone, I'm gonna say the fire started either in the gas tank or it started in the garage. It caught the car on fire and it started working its way up. So I think that you could get away with reskinning the doors. They sell skins. They're like $700 a piece. For 63s, they don't have a piece right here. But if you're building a Tribute, I would skip adding the 63 windshield trim and side trim. I'd go with the 64 to 67 or do a flush mount kit because this trim is expensive and hard to find. But they sell the door skin that's one piece that goes the whole way around. I would put a new door skin on it. If you need to patch in other pieces of this inside of the door, you could either just try to find new doors or get convertible doors for cheap and rob parts off of them to finish your doors out. It has vent windows in it, and those are expensive, so that is a nice key feature. Now the front end on that car, it has some fire damage up in here, and one of the inner fenders had some fire damage there. You could try to splice pieces in. Most likely what I would do is just tear the whole front off, put a new front end off. There could be some damage in the top of the firewall up here, which firewall, you know, that's what protects you from fire. I would think there would be a little damage there and maybe in the tunnel. But if you're building a resto mod, you're gonna smooth the firewall out like I did on the Tribute Split. And if you're gonna put in a different engine and transmission, you're gonna cut the tunnel out of it anyways. So there's a lot of things on this car that you're already gonna have to cut and modify that might be damaged. You could buy a whole dynamic one-piece tunnel to go from the firewall back, install that piece, install their rear floor, and boom, that fixes your whole issue. You install their smooth firewall kit, and that fixes your firewall issue. So if we add up some of these numbers that we just talked about here. Between rear deck, rear floor, door skins, the roof bonding strips, probably needs an exhaust valance, front end, inner fenders, hood, you can take your pick on that. Glue, I estimated high on the glue depending on how you glue it. I had about $10,000 in fiberglass. No, that doesn't include the custom dynamic fiberglass like the rear floor tunnel, smooth firewall kit. But if you're building a high-end resto mod, you know you're gonna have to spend money on that kind of stuff, or you could fabricate your own. Now there is some value in parts left behind. In one of the last videos, I did one on a convertible and people were squawking about not having any parts. So let's talk about parts. This car has headlight assemblies. Both of them, they both appear to be in good shape because the fire wasn't up here. So those are about 1,300 bucks. Motors, probably about 500 bucks. All 5 bumper pieces and like the grill, you could probably estimate those as cores from like 700 to 1,000 bucks depending on the condition. Bumper brackets, I have those at about 500 bucks. We have core support. That'd be about, I think we got a picture of the core support. Yeah, it's got a core support in it. Can't really tell what condition it's in, but that's probably about 300 bucks. It's got coupe doors. They're rough, so let's just estimate them at 500 bucks because they're burnt in here. If these bonding strips are compromised, then you may just have to get new doors, and those ones are just good for parts. It's got vent windows. You'd have to see if they're salvageable. They do sell the stainless for them, and you could probably polish a lot of the stuff up and potentially bring them back. I have those at 500 bucks of value there. If they're not salvageable, Tom Payne sells them, they make them. They're not that expensive and they're beautiful pieces, so you can get those. The floor and the firewall, I have those at about $1,000 for the pair. There's a lot of value there. Even if they are burnt and damaged, there's still value there. Seat frames, I saw the tracks are kind of expensive. You'd have to see what kind of condition they're in, but you could probably get $600, that's probably $600 worth of value. You probably have to put new springs on them, but there is value there. And if you're going to build a resto mod, you might use those seats, or you might just take them to a swap meet and sell them. Column, gauge cluster, radio, not a lot of value there. It's got the pedal assembly in it. That's a couple $100 bucks. The heater could potentially be intact. You might be able to sell that if one of the boxes or one of the Y ducts or something is intact. It has the inside windshield trim and some of the outside trim. So there's some value there. You could get some money for that, or if you're going to use it, it's still got the trim. So you actually have a decent bit of parts here to start off with. And the birdcage, I'd estimate that at about $5 to $7 grand, depending on condition. So that brings the total value to about $13,000. And if you're going to build this into a resto mod, you're going to want to sell the chassis and everything. You could probably get $3 to $5 grand for that with the engine. There's a lot of parts there. Could be some value there. And then if we jump into our total figures, I have about, say if you paid $12 for the car, $10 for fiberglass, you could buy the, if you want to make it a split window, you can buy the glass, trim, clips, gaskets, all that stuff new for like 3,500 bucks. New dash, $750, glass kit, $700, Roadster Shop Spec 7 chassis. Of course, that's the only one you can go with. 25 grand, bringing you to a grand total of about $52,000. With some dynamic fiberglass, you could easily bring that to 55 grand. Try to find a split window that's on a Roadster Shop chassis with all that brand new fiberglass for under $50,000. I dare you. I'm waiting. I don't think you're going to find it. So I know that's a lot of money. I know you guys are probably looking at me like I'm crazy. There's no way that's possible. But if you really want a split window, you really want to build a resto mod, whether you want to keep it or sell it at auction, you're gonna have to spend some money to do it. You might get lucky and find one that's cheap, but you're gonna have to put some work in. I know a lot of guys that have found them, but they're getting harder and harder to find. I've seen chunks from a car, a rear clip that was torn up, the roof skin was broken off of it, the car was hit hard, it had some birdcage pieces. Guy wanted $40,000 for it. Had the original engine and the transmission was broken in half. And the guy wanted $40,000 for it, and he sold it for that. So you could build a car for mid-50s with that. I mean, that's assuming that everything's in usable shape. As soon as you have to start replacing more parts, that could go up. But believe it or not, that's manageable. If this car was only ever going to be worth $50,000 and it took you $50,000 to get it to that point without interior wiring, engine, transmission, paint, all that stuff, it's not worth it. But here's the deal. The prices of everything are going up, and real split windows at auctions are selling for $500,000. So people can afford to spend a little bit more money on projects, and people are, because it's getting harder to find them. So that's my spiel on this. I've seen them sell. I know what they sell for. I build projects as a hobby, so I know what they sell for. It's very possible for you to build this car somewhat reasonable, but again, there's going to be a lot of work. If you're going to do all this work yourself, you're going to have some time put into it. If you're one of my subscribers that buys the car and you're interested in me building it, let me know. I can skin it for you, but it won't be for another year or so until I have some free time, because I don't have any free time. That doesn't exist. But if you do buy the car, you can watch this video series on me putting this car together, and you'll see exactly how to fix a car. I've pretty much done videos on everything fiberglass related for these cars. So I hope you enjoyed the video. This is for all you guys that want coupes. So now you can see why coupes are so expensive, and maybe you need to reevaluate the priorities or start looking harder for that little old lady that has one tucked away in a barn somewhere. So if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. I hope that helps you guys out there, and let me know what you think. I know some of you guys are going to say I'm crazy, because there are some people that refuse to believe that these cars are worth a lot of money, and people buy them without all the parts. They're not easy to find. Look on eBay, look on Marketplace. It's really hard to find a decent project that's complete. They're not out there. All the guys that are building high-end resto mods are taking them, taking drivers and projects, swallowing them up, and bringing them to auction, because that's where the money is. So guys, I'm going to get back to work here on the split window, so I'll catch you guys later.